Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are looking at a game between Georgi Kachievili with the white pieces and Darevic with the black pieces. In this game, we're going to use this as an example to just talk about some features in cramped positions. So this game started out as a caro-kann advanced variation, uh, classical variation with bishop f5, knight f3, and now e6. And as you can see, black has this structure known as a Yaroslav structure, very solid structure, not too ambitious at this point, but black has a very solid structure, very hard to just break through and attack. And this is a great formation to utilize against very aggressive players. Um, Noteworthy is the match in 1961 between former world champion at the time, Mikhail Botvinnik versus Tal. Botvinnik employed the caro-kann with great effectiveness in order to slow down the vitrolic attacks of Tal. And the caro-kann is definitely a mainstay, uh, in the repertoire of a lot of very strong position type oriented players like Peter Leko, uh, as exponent of the caro-kann, Anatoly Karpov later on in his career when he no longer wanted to play e4 e5 as a defense to the king's pawn opening. He switched to the caro-kann. So it's very solid and takes a lot of patience at times to to break through. And sometimes this can frustrate aggressive players who will often make a mistake, just be left without an attack and just pawn weaknesses to to deal with. Okay, so one more feature I would like to mention is notice too that the bishop is outside of the pawn chain. So in your French advanced variation, which is very similar position, the trade-off is that in the French advance, the bishop will still be on c8, locked behind the pawn chain, but for that extra tempo, you will have already placed an attack against white's d4 pawn, and the bishop will have to be developed at some other point. So basically, black has traded time to get his piece outside of the pawn chain. So right now, he's not putting any pressure on white center, but he has this piece outside of the pawn chain. So that's kind of like the trade-off there. And of course, not attacking the center gives white more time to solidify his center. It makes it more difficult in the long run for black to tear it down. So this is just a basic umbrella um, overview of what's going on here. So bishop e2, knight e7 is played. Again, keeping the position closed, especially while being a bit cramped and behind in development. c5 is also a possible line. Um, this is just a sample game that took place. Um, just to show you what can happen sometime if black opens the position too early and gets caught out there, right? So he plays the c5, and now white plays the move c4. And notice that black's pieces are not well placed. There's still development to be done. Even though the knights are on e7 and d7, that is not adequate development there. Yes, the pieces are out technically, but they're not in optimal places. And white uses this as an opportunity to open up the position and begin his attack. And as you can see, black has to move the same pieces more than once. This gives white the opportunity to ramp up his attack. And look at the difference in development. And unfortunately for white, the position starts to open here. And he tries his best to get his pieces out in time, but he's not able to. So he plays king takes e7, knight takes e7. He's still be in a world of trouble here, as after d takes c5 here, knight b d5, and then just For example, a strong move like queen a4 check can be played. b5 doesn't work here due to the en passant. And then if knight, if knight c6, then you can just take here. B takes, and then the natural move bishop d7. Then you have moves like e6, and again, the onslaught is too fast and too strong for black to really get away to safety in time. So c5 is definitely a viable option, but I'm just giving you an example of what happens if the position is allowed to be opened too early before black completes its development. This is why many times you'll see black playing a coy with the move like knight e7. All right, he's not ready to allow things to get opened up at this point. So development continues. Castles, knight c8. Of course, c5 can be played here also. You have the same kind of ideas here. If white plays passively like c3, then this gives black a little more time to consolidate as the position is not really being opened, right? But however, instead of playing c3, again the idea of c4, trying to catch black slipping. Notice how he plays this move d4 to keep things closed. And this is a possibility in the position, okay? So now knight c8 is played. And what's giving black so much opportunity to maneuver like this is that the position is closed. So very important ideas in the position. Bishop e3, development continues. Bishop e7, knight bd2, castle, and now c3. And now we can see that white has set up a solid position where he has more space on the king side, and that's where he is going to be concentrating his attack. All right. Now black hasn't really showed his hand yet, but he should either be trying to attack f6, right, the head of the pawn chain, or down at the base with the maneuver like c5 at some point, and sometimes both moves are done. Here we can see that white's plan displayed ideas to bring the knight down to e1 to d3 and then subsequently to f4. Knight d7 and now knight e1, and again ideas of bringing this knight here eventually to g2 and then to e3, attacking this bishop right here. Okay, black makes the attack on the center now with f6, and of course further ideas, queen b6, b3, for instance, the f6, same idea, attacking the base and the head of the pawn chain. f4, f takes e5, f takes e5, and now bishop g5. Now here it's interesting because you would think that strategically this bishop right here is a good bishop for black, that he wouldn't want to trade it off. Okay, but here in this instance, if white trades, then of course it would be his bad bishop, but then he would bring the queen, black's queen, to a very good square here. So possible is bishop takes, queen takes, and say knight d f3, queen e3 check, and let's say king over, and then it's possible to counterattack the center. We'll start breaking the center down with c5, or if he wanted to keep his maneuvering game going, let's play a move like knight e7. So interesting trade-off there. White rejects that and plays bishop f2. Although again, I think strategically it's better to trade off this bad, it's bad bishop for black's good bishop. Bishop h4, attempting to trade again. He rejects it and weakens his king side and plays g3. So he wants to definitely keep pieces on the board. Again, bishop takes h4, queen takes h4, knight df3, queen e7. Again, I think this has to be good for white strategically. Anyway, okay. After all, it gets rid of his bad bishop for black's good bishop, and he has his pawns on the dark square. So and his queen is controlling the dark squares also. So this variation is better than the previous one where black's queen gets to penetrate into white's king side. So anyway, he plays g3, which I think is inferior to just taking. Bishop e7, knight g2, and now queen b6 with this attack on the b2 pawn here. Um, Another option is b5 here, although it's a very committal move, as you can see with the c5 square being weak. So queen b6, knight e3, attacking the bishop. Unfortunately, because of the move g3, the bishop has a place to go, and it finds a good square. Attacking the rook. Rook moves to e1, and here comes that bishop again, g5. Queen takes b2. Seems safe here. Rook b1, queen takes c3, rook takes b7, and knight c6 and knight b3. And it doesn't seem like white really has any compensation for the material there. Um, Sometimes by instinct we avoid this capture, and I do it a lot too. Like just on principle, I hate capturing the b pawn with the queen. But sometimes you got to calculate. Ultimately the game of chess is a concrete game. So here it seems that I could be wrong, but here it seems that it's okay. Like I don't see really any kind of refutation, that or a way black can a white can trap the black queen, or win material or anything like that. It seems like black is pretty good, and also this move looks interesting to me too. It's giving up this exchange and bringing the king out here, but that's for you guys to study. So bishop g5 was played instead, and now bishop g4. Bishop takes e3. So now he gives up that he was thirsty to get rid of that dark square bishop. He gives it up for the knight. Bishop takes e3, and now bishop takes g4. Queen takes g4, and now c5. C5 protects the e6 pawn. Rook f5 is also possible. But c5, right, he's trying to kill two birds with one stone. Why not attack the opponent's center and protect the e pawn at the same time? So now bishop h6. I think d takes c5 is interesting also. Rook f7. Rook f1. And you can see some problems in the position. Look at the position of the black knights here. And this is why I said this video is primarily about cramped positions. Rook e7, bishop g5, and now rook e8. And just like that, if you want, you can pause this video and try to find the winning continuation for white. That's right. In one move, this game is resignable here, and that's all due to the cramped nature of the black position. And black has allowed himself to be cramped by his piece coordination being so horrible. Those knights on d7 and c8, and of course the rook on a8 is shut out of the game, and the queen subsequently is shut out on b6. So anyway, Kachievili ended the game with rook f7. All right, and the idea here is that if king takes f7, then queen h5 check, king f8, rook f1. What else, right? Because you're gonna lose, get mated. So knight f6, e takes f6, queen c7, and basically you just lose a bunch of material here, and then get mated at the end. Of course, if queen takes b2, It's dubious also, and then you just start cleaning up, um, on the back rank there. So this is why after rook f7, um, Black had to resign. So what can we learn from that game in conclusion? Only 24 moves, but what we can learn is you have to be very careful in accepting the cramped position. All right. So there's a there's a fine line between being solid and having a solid position, but just then having a position where uh, you know it's a useless position. It's not practical. And so what happened is Black had crossed that line at some point where he did a little bit too much maneuvering and wasn't active enough, and then his pieces wind up becoming uncoordinated, and then he wound up being susceptible to a tactical blow. Because if you start combining the elements of space, a space advantage, lead and development, right, control of the center, etc., that's what happens. Tactical blows then begin to appear on the board, and that's what happened to White here. It seems like happened to Black. It seems like there shouldn't be anything here, but just out of the clear blue, Rook F7 ends the game there. So if you're playing openings like this, caro-kann, French advanced variation, where you're giving up a lot of space, remember you still must be active in looking for opportunities um, to destroy your opponent's center and trade down pieces and use your favorable pawn structure, right, at some point to go into a favorable ending or whatever. So be careful of maneuvering too much behind your quote unquote solid pawn structure, because what will happen is you'll still have a solid pawn structure, but you'll be forced to resign because of the threats of mate or massive loss of material. So I hope you enjoyed that game. Please check my links below. Support the channel by donating, and also there's DVDs and or books related to the opening that was presented today, which in this case it will be the caro-kann, and I'll see you in the next video.